Welcome to the NASM-CPT Podcast. My name is Rick Richey, and I'm delighted to have you here today. If you are watching this on our Facebook Live, and I hope you are, if you're watching this on Facebook Live, if you see anything wet on my shirt, I'm going to share a life hack with you really quick. When you have a wrinkly shirt, because I have been traveling, usually what I do is I'll take a shower, and without toweling off, I put the shirt on. It's completely wet, but it completely dries without any wrinkles. If you actually do see wrinkles, then maybe it doesn't work as well as I thought. I'm very excited today to have Farah Khan with us, and she is a registered dietitian. She's going to be talking to us today about what is the appeal of these popular diets, what are some of these popular diets, and then we're going to get into the quality of nutrition versus just counting your macros. And I expect this exploration to go into a lot of different places. And with that being said, you get to direct it. So if you're watching live on Facebook Live, then please shoot us some questions right now. Don't wait until the end. Certainly if something pops up and we answer it along the way, fantastic. But if you have questions, go ahead and start asking those questions. And our producer, Greg, will field those questions. We'll divvy them out. We'll decide if they've gotten answered or not before they get asked. And then if they do get asked, he'll give you a shout out on the air. So with that being said, hi, Farah. Welcome. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we get into it all.
Hi, Rick. Well, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure being here. I'm definitely very excited about it. And thank you also for the tips on getting wrinkles out. I will keep that in mind next time I travel. It's great to be here. I'm really excited. I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a registered dietitian for the last 5 years. I have a master's in food and nutrition, and I completed my master's degree up in Framingham, so several years ago. I also have a master's in fine art illustration and an undergrad in econ and poli-sci. So becoming a dietitian was a career change for me, and it's something that I absolutely love. So I currently do a lot of outpatient nutrition counseling in New York City and the Jersey area. I also teach undergrad and graduate nutrition classes at Long Island University in Brooklyn.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, they got a good personal training program out of that university as well. And with you having a background in design, that means when you write your nutrition textbook, you can design it as well. That's a one-stop shop for you. So thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it. And hey, let's just jump right into it at this point. I want to talk about it. What is so appealing with people when it comes to popular diets? And then let's have this conversation, Farah, because it's really important. There are a lot of popular diets. There are popular diets that I don't know about because I don't live in the world of trying to figure out what people are doing. But I know several of them, and one of which my brother is on, which is the carnivore diet. So I want to talk about all of these. Why are they so appealing? And then let's get into what's going on within these diets.
Right. And you're right. There are so many out there. I'm sure there are some popular diets out there that, I haven't even heard of. So I constantly have to keep looking them up. Okay, what new diet is this person on? Some of the popular ones, as you mentioned, there's a carnivore diet, there's a keto diet, which does have a little bit of, medical nutrition history behind it. There's the paleo diet, the primal diet, the 3-day army diet, so many out there, the intermittent fasting diet or protocol. What's the appeal of them? I mean, we see so many people who jump on, this next phase or bandwagon of, okay, let me try this diet because they're looking for a quick fix. A lot of the times I think diets are glamorized, either someone's promoting them or they're popularized in popular media. Typically, they seem popular because they offer a short-term solution. If you do X, Y, Z, you will get result Y or result Z. And that's appealing to a lot of people. We like some sort of solution to problems. And if a diet offers that, then it becomes appealing, And one of the things that diets offer are like a blueprint or a roadmap which a lot of people like. It's a simple structurized program that says, okay, if you do X, Y, and Z, you will be guaranteed these results. And a lot of times when people are looking to lose weight or to feel healthier, that's appealing to them. There's this dichotomy between this is where I am, this is what the diet says I will achieve if I follow these steps. And that's really popular. That's really appealing to a lot of people. So I think that's one of the huge things about it, is you do have this XYZ format where it seems to guarantee you results, if you just follow these simple steps.
I get it a lot with personal training and fitness where people want to ask me a question and let's be honest, Farah, they don't like this answer, but it's a good answer from our perspective. And the answer is, it depends, right? So when they ask a question about fitness or they ask a question about nutrition, it depends comes from a place of education, right? So there are different strokes for different folks. What are their different needs? What are different pathologies? What did your PAR-Q say? What did your input form say? What are your subjective and objectives and signs? And what are your symptoms? There's so many things. And so when we say it depends, then people say, well, I don't want it depends. I want the answer. Right. And I think you're right with this, and then any diet is going to give you the answer. It eradicates the it depends situation and just says, do it this way.
Right. And people like that clarity, As a dietitian, when I counsel people or, when my colleagues counsel people, there's a lot of it depends. If we're asked, well, is saturated fat bad for me? Well, it depends. How much are you eating? What else are you eating? What does the rest of your diet look like? There's no clear-cut answer in, well, yes, it's bad or yes, it's good. And that ambiguity, it isn't very sexy to a lot of people. With diets, too, it's, you can eat healthy. You can have if you're looking for weight loss, you can have a slower-paced, moderate rate of weight loss by improving the quality of your diet. But that doesn't sound that sexy. People don't want, a prolonged change or a drawn out weight loss pattern. We want immediate results. We're geared like that in our society. We want immediate change. So that concreteness, I think, of a lot of popular diets tends to be very appealing.
And do you find that the majority of the diets, this is an underhand pitch question, the majority of the diets are pretty short-lived, and why is that?
They are pretty short-lived, predominantly because most of them, and again, I hate to generalize because there are different protocols in the different diets, but they typically cut out either a food group or a significant chunk of calories, or they have restrictive rules that you can follow them for like a month, a couple of months, but in the long term, it becomes difficult to sustain them. For example, if you're cutting out a huge food group, going out to eat may be difficult, not to mention that you may be at risk of certain nutrient deficiencies, depending on what the food group is. But a lot of times, the popular diets achieve their success by creating a caloric deficit for someone who's looking to lose weight. So if you cut out certain food groups, if you cut out huge portions of what you may have been eating before, then yes, you're in a caloric deficit. So you are going to see some improvement. I will say some popular diets will cut out things like a lot of processed foods that may be, high in fat, sugar. That automatically is, quote unquote, I hate to use the term cleaning up your diet, but it does remove a lot of high calorie energy-dense foods that may have been contributing to someone's, weight gain or to them not feeling so great. So if they cut that out, they're automatically going to feel better. Now, you can do that without going on a diet, but having that structured roadmap sometimes, just seems appealing to a lot of people.
I'm curious for those people who are going through nutrition study in school and things like that. We all know the word diet just means what you eat, but in general, when we talk about diet, we're not talking about what you eat. We're talking almost about what you restrict. Right. So it's some sort of plan around your eating. In school, are they like, oh, I can't stand this? Or are they just like, hey, this is what it is, and just understand it and let it go?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because a lot of times when you say the word diet, people automatically picture like a caloric level or a caloric restriction that you should be eating. I'm hoping that going forward, that schools, even in popular media, the word diet doesn't take on such a negative connotation of restriction, but that it becomes more inclusive of, okay, what are you eating? What are your, daily eating habits like? And focuses more on quality versus getting into a numbers game necessarily and just going on and off a certain way of eating. In the long term, going back to your question about why do diets, are they short-lived? A lot of them are short-lived because they don't bring about sustainable changes in your way of eating. A magic place, or like the optimal place for someone to be in, is for them to be able to fuel and nourish their body adequately and be comfortable modifying their diet in a variety of situations when they're traveling, if they're going out to a party, if, I don't know, at weddings, whatever occasion, just being comfortable and knowing what they're eating is well within their nutrient, needs. Being able to modify your diet in a variety of situations and being comfortable being able to do that is where ideally anyone really wants to be, without having to yo-yo on and off certain, ways of eating and restricting nutrients.
Now, one of the questions I have for you, I think this is probably the biggest thing when it comes to being someone that counsels people, is not necessarily what is the right choice. Don't get me wrong. Yes, that is valuable, and that's where that education comes in. But just because you know the right things doesn't mean you can get people to do the right things. So what is the challenge for you as a registered dietitian that works with people to get people to try to increase their compliance and adherence to decisions or the conversations that you have with them?
Great question. Multiple factors feed into people's decision, to eat a certain way, into their food choices. I think the environment we live in certainly has a role to play with the plethora of, food choices around us. There's fast food. If you go into the grocery store, there are multiple, varieties of things. And a lot of clients report that they just feel overwhelmed with the amount, with the variety of choices out there. They're not sure what to pick. Some clients report that they just feel compelled to eat, dessert if it's in the house, or they have, a weakness for chips, cookies, candy, and that if it's in the house, they're going to eat it. So adherence, and I want to say just not feeling, this pressure to eat a certain way sometimes just becomes too difficult for a lot of people to stick with. I think a lot of times clients place a lot of pressure on themselves, that they should be eating a certain way and restricting, certain other things. That in itself creates a very difficult environment, because now that they're torn between, well, I really want to eat this, but I feel like I quote unquote shouldn't. Whereas relaxing that pressure somewhat and saying, these foods are available to me, I can enjoy them within the context of a healthy diet and still do fine, that part of it seems to be tough to overcome.
Yeah. There are a few questions I have. One is, when I was studying nutrition, not on the level that you were, but there were a lot of talk about variety of foods and balance and eat the rainbow. And that does not mean get your Skittles in, but having a lot of different colors in your foods. Why is that? Can you just kind of address that? And then hopefully that maybe can lead into diet quality, which is one of the conversations that we agreed that we wanted to talk about, and then counting macros and pitting those against each other.
Right. Eat the rainbow. It's something that I advocate too. And as you said, it doesn't mean eating your Skittles. It really means eating a wide variety of whole unprocessed foods of different colors. Okay, so a lot of different colored fruits and vegetables. Why we recommend that is that those colors reflect phytonutrients in those foods, and those are, they don't have phytonutrients don't have calories in them, but they are nutrients that play a huge role in our health. Okay, they have antioxidant properties, anti-inflammatory properties, vasodilatory properties. So, buzzwords that you hear like flavonoids, anthocyanins, carotenoids, all those are phytonutrients that are in things like, your berries, your tomatoes, your yellow and red bell peppers. Those micronutrients are incredibly important in regulating, our metabolic processes. So they keep us healthy. They have a huge influence on our immune system, on our respiratory system, just in every cell in our body. They regulate a lot of metabolic processes. So if your diet skimps on those micronutrients, then you're really missing out on a lot of those quality nutrients that can help keep you healthy in the long term. That's why, we really highly recommend that people diversify their diet in terms of getting in a wide variety of fruits and vegetables to maximize their nutrient intake or their micronutrient intake.
Okay. So with that being said, I also have a question, and then we'll get into diet quality. But after 60 days of quarantine, I figured I was safe enough, and I left New York City with my family and came down to Alabama. So I'm hanging out with my mom and dad where I grew up, and it's making me think about how I grew up eating. My kids have grown up eating differently. So they are having, they'll eat yellow and red and green pepper. I never had a pepper until I was an adult out of my house. But also the foods that we do have, they tend to be in the South, particularly. I'll speak for myself and my family, but we will cook the chew out of any vegetable. Like, you don't need teeth to eat the food that we cook. All right, all you need is a tongue and a gullet, and you just chew it with your tongue and swallow it down. Is it true that you can cook nutrients out of food?
It is. You can literally cook foods to death, to the point where, okay, now you've kind of destroyed a lot of the nutrients. High heat cooking can destroy a lot of heat sensitive nutrients. If you cook in a lot of water, so say, for example, you're boiling, vegetables in a ton of water, you are going to leach out a lot of the water soluble vitamins in it. So I don't, recommend high heat cooking a lot of time. If you are going to retain some nutrients, I'm not going to say you're not going to get anything out of your vegetables, but not cooking them to an extremely high temperature or cooking them for a long period of time will preserve more of the nutrients, the antioxidants, the vitamins in them. Minerals, not so much. Minerals tend to be a little bit more hardy. So things like iron, calcium, copper, those types of micronutrients are a little bit more hardy, but your vitamins, your phytonutrients are much more susceptible to being destroyed with high heat cooking.
Yeah, I can't say I'm disappointed because I figured that would be the answer,
right.
But too bad. Well, that's why we have teeth. Well, I'll talk to my mom. So with that being said, people a lot of times, in order to get weight loss, and I want people who are listening right now live to start coming up with your questions, offering your questions about what diets they want to ask you about, and about counting their macros. But let's talk about counting macros. And a lot of people, we're looking at caloric deficit when it comes to weight loss. And so that's macros, which is, first of all, really challenging for a lot of people. Right, trying to count the macros itself. But you mentioned a diet quality versus counting macros. So can we speak a little bit to this and then have a conversation about both of these things, right? I want to know about diet quality, but I also want to talk about macros, and does that mean somehow that diet quality kind of inherently provides fewer calories? I don't know. Like, let's talk this one out.
No, it's great. It's a fascinating topic. And for anyone who's listening in, we're throwing around this word macros, if you're not sure what it is, macros is just short for macronutrients, which are your proteins, fats, and carbs. In a lot of, diets, or in certain, situations, people will count their macros, they'll count their grams of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, because those three macros are the ones that provide calories. Okay, you don't get calories from vitamins and minerals or phytonutrients, but you do get calories from carbs, proteins, and fats. And, just as an FYI, carbohydrates provide 4 calories per gram, fats provide 9 calories per gram, protein provides 9 calories per gram. So if you count your macros.
Back that one up again.
Fats provides 9 calories per gram.
And then proteins are what?
4.
Okay. And carbohydrates are what?
4.
All right. Continue.
4. I was like, oh, wait, did I get that wrong? No. So because those macronutrients provide calories or contribute calories to your diet, if you're counting them, it can give you an idea of your overall caloric intake, but also how your calories are split up across protein, carbs, and fats. And counting macros is a useful tool in certain situations. For example, if someone's looking to change their body composition, and they want to make sure that they're eating enough protein or enough carbohydrates to fuel their training, it can be a helpful tool in that case. Where I feel it's not so helpful is, for the average person who's just trying to improve their diet, they can get very caught up in counting the numbers between, I need X number of grams of carbohydrate, X number of grams of fat, and start to eat just random foods in order to hit those macro targets, not paying attention to the quality of their diet. And by quality of diet, I mean, are you getting whole unprocessed sources of lean protein, of vegetables, of fruit, of whole grains, of healthy fats? That, I think, should be in place before an average person just starts to count their macros and worry about the numbers. So diet quality, I feel, for the general population is superior to worrying about what your macros are. Once you've got, once you've taken a look at your diet quality, then if you have a specific goal in mind, for example, body composition changes, or if you're training and want to make sure that you're hitting your targets for protein and carbs and fats, then looking at your macro breakdown can be very helpful.
Can we talk about, you talk about quality of food. Are there, is there a quality of macronutrients? Mm-hmm. And I say that because you did go through and you say good fat versus bad fat, right? Lean protein versus not lean protein. And then we have multiple versions of what a carbohydrate is and how it's delivered into the system. So can we have you just touch on it? And I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but I'd love to be in this conversation about good versus bad. And I'm not talking about trans fats. We'll take that off the table. But let's just talk about types and what tends to be better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I'm so glad that you brought up the good versus bad label, because in reality, I hate to label any kind of food as good versus bad. Apart from trans fats, I will say trans fats are bad all around.
We know they're bad.
They're just bad all around. So we'll just throw them out the water here. I don't like to label foods as good or bad, because at the end of the day, they're all a different composition of macronutrients. Okay, they're a different composition of protein, fats, and carbs. You may have a higher fat meat versus a lean meat. Both can fit into the context of a healthy diet. It just depends how much you're eating of each and how often, and what your overall health is. So, here we go back again to the it depends question on the entire situation. So I don't like to label foods as good or bad, simply because they are, a different combination of macronutrients. They can all fit within the context of anyone's diet. That being said, if someone's diet is predominantly, comprised of very high fat foods, very, that are high in saturated fat, for example, and they have other health issues, that may not necessarily be the best choice for them. If someone, for example, has medical issues and that they are, for example, diabetic, and their diet is just high in sources of high glycemic carbohydrates, or simply very high in carbohydrates in general, that may not be the best choice for them. So again, we go back to the whole "it depends" question. That being said, there are certain sources of, for example, fats that are heart healthy. So you have your monounsaturated fats and things like olive oil, olives, avocados that, a lot of research does show that they are heart healthy fats. They're associated with lower risks of cardiovascular disease, improved, triglycerides, longevity. Those types of fats I would recommend to be a much larger portion of the fat in your diet. Omega-3 fats and things like fatty fish, walnuts, flax seeds, those are heart-healthy fats, less inflammatory than your omega-6s in a lot of vegetable oils. So having more omega-3s in your diet is going to be healthier, quote unquote, because it is associated with a lot of health benefits. So there are certain choices of macronutrients that have health benefits that I would say are healthier choices for that reason.
Okay. And I'm going to do this because I don't do a lot of supplementation, but I do take an omega-3 supplement because I am allergic to fish. And I'm not crushing walnuts like that. Okay. So I do take a supplement because of the correlation of heart health and having that healthy fat that's associated with it. Are there moments where I know I'm not one of those people that just say supplement, but because that's what a supplement is, it supplements something that isn't already present in your diet or cannot be achieved through your diet. And that's one of the things that's difficult for me to take in. Are there certain times where you work with people and you're like, hey, you should consider taking a supplement?
I think you nailed it there when you said, they supplement your diet and make up for something that's missing. Yes, absolutely. I'm not opposed to supplements. I mean, what are supplements? They really encompass all your vitamins and minerals that you take outside of what you're getting in your food, plus, your protein, et cetera, et cetera. There are cases in which case I would suggest as someone take a supplement. Case in point, someone who might be in your situation, if they're allergic, if they don't eat fish for whatever reason, if they're not consuming a diet that's rich in a certain nutrient, then by all means, a supplement can help. Omega-3 fish oils are one of the supplements that I do feel like if people are not getting enough in their diet of omega-3s, it would be beneficial to look into. Probiotics are another big, area of supplements, and improved gut health. There's so much out there right now on the importance of gut health and immunity, and just longevity and, chronic diseases. So if someone's not getting a good source of probiotics in their diet, if they're not eating fermented foods, if they're not eating yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, all those good things, then I would say, maybe look into getting a probiotic because you're not getting enough good of that healthy bacteria for your gut health. So certainly. Now there are other supplements, things like iron, vitamin D, that I would say that needs to go through, a doctor, because you do need to get lab work done, make sure that, you are actually deficient in those things before you start popping something like an iron pill or something. No one should really do that unless they get their lab work done.
Yeah. Okay, good. I think that's valuable to point out. So thank you for that, because sometimes people just say, hey, let's supplement this, and they have no idea if they're sufficient, deficient, if it's needed. So I agree with that 100%. Get some tests done before you just start throwing things that may or may not be needed into your body. With that said, I'm going to turn this over to Greg, our producer. Greg, do we have any questions that have come through the pipeline here for Farah?
We do. There's a few of them. Jill would like to know, for an active woman, what is the macronutrients you'd recommend per day?
So macronutrients in terms of caloric level or just a breakdown of how many grams of protein, carbs, and fats?
I believe she's looking for a breakdown of carb, protein, and fats.
Okay. Jill, you're going to hate my answer because, of course, it's going to be, it depends. It really depends. It really depends on, your age, height, weight, and your energy needs, your baseline energy needs. It's going to depend on your activity level, really, plus any health issues that, you may or may not have. To give you, a quick explanation of why it depends is that, your energy needs, your daily energy requirements are broken up into your basal metabolism, your BMR, your exercise activity thermogenesis, which is what you expend through structured exercise, your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is, how active you are just walking around or daily stuff, and the thermic effect of food, which is the energy expended digesting and metabolizing what you've eaten. So we'd have to take a look at, your stats, your height, age, weight, activity level, plus what you're doing for exercise, and how active you are on a daily basis before giving you a specific recommendation on your macro breakdown.
Oh, people hate that answer, Farah. They hate it. Just give me a diet and tell me the right answer. That's all I want. Oh, bummer, right? Greg, anything else that we got coming in?
Yeah, Abe wants to know, is it okay to use intermittent fasting for weight loss?
Is it okay? Of course, I hate to give like a yes and no answer. It is okay if you don't have any health issues where it may be contraindicated. Okay, so if you don't have like hypoglycemic episodes where you should not be going without food for any specific period of time, if you're not type 1 diabetic, where you really shouldn't be doing something like that, it is okay. I don't think that there's any harm in trying it. But I would speak to your doctor, let them know, meet with a dietitian, if you have any questions about it, but just, cover your bases. Make sure that there are no underlying health issues that may contraindicate that.
I think something else with intermittent fasting, and it's become popular, and I think it's in large part because it just gives you a window that you can eat. And if you're not familiar with intermittent fasting, it's just giving windows of time. So 24 hours in a day, let's say that you have an 18-hour fast, and the other 6 hours in the day is your window to eat. And that window might be you can have lunch and dinner and snacks in between. But here's the thing, that works really, really well for some people, and it just doesn't for others. So one of the things about diets is that you have to find sustainability in those diets. And if it doesn't work for you, then don't. But I agree with you on that, Farah. There could be for some people, contraindications. But if you're a healthy person, try it. Right. Give it a try. If it works for you, continue with it until it gets old for you, and then you'll find another diet, because that's what we do. We go from one generally to another. But it has to be workable.
Right. And exactly, Rick. I do want to add, Greg, that if it's a helpful tool for you to kind of, take a look at your diet and say, okay, I want to structure it. I want to improve my diet quality. And really, avoid snacking excessively, maybe late at night. That's where I feel like it helps a lot of people to cut out a lot of excessive snacking if they feel like that's out of control. If you feel like it's going to be helpful for that reason, by all means, you're welcome to try it. If you feel like it's becoming stressful just thinking about food and that you're starving in the morning and you really want to eat, now it's not really becoming something that's sustainable. It's impeding your quality of life if you're constantly thinking about, oh my God, I'm hungry, but I can't eat till noon. In that case, I feel like it's not really worth it because it's not working with your lifestyle. Go back, take a look at, what you're eating, your diet quality, as I said. Improve your diet quality, and you may find that may be enough to help you lose weight rather than worrying about a specific window.
And with that being said, thank you for bringing that up. With that being said, a lot of times when people are doing intermittent fasting, they will freely say, then you can eat whatever you want, but you can do it as long as it's within this window.
Right.
And I would like to challenge that. I'm sure that you would like to challenge that as well. But one thing it does do, which sometimes is what's easier for people, is it doesn't necessarily change what you're eating or what you're having. If you're still having a bad diet, but you're limiting your calories, there can be value to that. Mm-hmm. But what we would like to see beyond that is not just the limitation of calories, but the increase in health. And we've seen the quote over and over again, let thy food be thy medicine, right? So use your food to be a gift to you, and not just for cravings or desires, but also give your body what it needs. And I've said this before. One time, it was one of my best friends in the world, his name is Jordan. Somebody just didn't drink enough water. And they say, oh, I don't ever drink water. I don't like water. And he just looks at him and he goes, you are an adult. Drink water. It is time to be an adult. Drink your water. And so I hate to just be that blunt, because it's not that easy for a lot of people to do what they need to do. But I do it with my children, with their food. I know what you want to eat and I know what you need to eat. And I look at it with myself as well. I should be better sometimes with my diet, and sometimes my wife's wonderful. She'll make wonderful, wonderful, healthy meals, and I may not love it, but they are so healthy. Sometimes I do love it. Don't get me wrong. I do enjoy healthy food as well, but understanding the right decision may not curb a craving, but eventually that craving will pass too. And I think it's difficult to say discipline, right? Because sometimes just saying discipline does not answer the question. It is creating a strategy that's going to help you achieve a goal, but there always has to be effort within any strategy to get you somewhere. There always has to be effort. And so I do want to push that it is not just, here's the diet where you'll never be hungry, and here's the diet where you can eat whatever you want. I think there needs to be a strategy, and there needs to be the effort that creates change, because change isn't easy.
Change definitely is not easy. And, trying to change too many things in your diet in one go is also overwhelming for a lot of people. That, going from maybe not having a very healthy diet to suddenly doing a complete 180 and saying, I'm going to cut all these things out in one go and try and stick with it, that may be very stressful and difficult for people. So working with what is realistic for someone to be able to sustain in the long term, that's what's going to bring about lasting changes. It's got to be something that you can stick with long term for it to make a difference, and without yo-yoing back and forth between, if you're trying to lose weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, because that's a dangerous trap to fall into. Not to mention stressful. Going back to your point though about diet quality with intermittent fasting, yes, absolutely. I don't think that people should use it as a justification for a free-for-all in the window of eating, without any regard to what they're eating. As a whole, being more aware and cognizant of what you're putting in your body does a lot of good. Being aware of what nutrient-dense foods you're eating, what nutrient-dense foods you're not eating, how you can improve the quality of your diet. Being aware of that, being aware of what you're eating, putting in your body, I think does everyone a lot of good, because it does make you more likely to choose more nutrient-dense products. And it also gives you, I think, the confidence and the ability to indulge sensibly when you really want something. Okay, so being more aware of what you're eating gives you an advantage on both accounts. Yes, you're eating more nutrient-dense foods, but you also know that if you really want that ice cream, you can have it, because you're not necessarily eating it as a free-for-all all the time. It's perfectly fine to have it when you want it. But that awareness, I think, provides the freedom.
Yeah, and I like it too. My dad, I just thinking about this probably because I'm back at home in my parents' house with my family right now visiting. And my dad, I remember he said one time, "Can you imagine how good grapes used to be before they created Snickers bars?" So I just think that there are some gifts from nature that can feed us a little bit better, can provide a bit more nutrients, and that are absolutely delicious, which you can still overdo, but you're going to be less likely to go into this excessive caloric intake from apples and other delicious foods and you're also not going to feel bad about it when you put those things in your house and you have them. I doubt that guiltometer is going to go through the roof because you had apples or grapes or a clementine or a nectarine. But when you crush that candy bar, whatever it is, then sometimes we circle back around and we flog ourselves and we beat ourselves up over doing those things. And don't get me wrong, like you said, the ice cream can be okay. And for somebody like me, like I just have to plan around it. And multiple reasons. One, because I'm type 2 diabetic. So we had a family get together and they had ice cream. And I knew we were going to have ice cream. So I planned my carbohydrates throughout the day. I did my exercise before I had my food. And then I was like, now I can do this without this incredible spike in my blood sugar, which could be dangerous for me. So I try not to have foods like that, but when I do, and I know it's coming and I prepare for it, or remember I have a strategy. Mm-hmm. All right. So, and there's effort that goes into it. And trust me, there's effort that said, I have to minimize my personal carbohydrate intake so that I can have these carbohydrates at this time. But I planned for it, put a strategy together for it, and then executed that. And I think that, we could be, as you mentioned multiple times, more aware, being aware and being prepared. Then that's where that value comes in.
Exactly.
Awesome. Greg, hey, do we have any other questions, sir?
Yeah, your wife is wondering why you don't like her food. She's in the chat.
Yep.
No, I'm just kidding, Rick.
For that.
Just kidding. Ada, and I apologize if I mispronounced that name in the chat, wants to know what your thoughts on food addiction are. Is it fact or is it fiction?
Food addiction. I want to say that I'm not like the scientific guru on this. I would have to go back and look at a lot of studies. I don't believe that, food is necessarily addictive. I think that we associate certain foods with feelings of, pleasure, with feelings of feeling good. And that association, that feel-good feeling, can be something that we, quote unquote, become addicted to, that we like the way it feels, that we attach emotional comfort to certain things. For example, if I'm stressed out and I start reaching for, I'll choose ice cream again. I don't know why I'm picking on ice cream. I know it is good. If I'm stressed out and I'm reaching for ice cream all the time, then that may turn into a habit where now I'm always going to be reaching for ice cream because I'm feeling stressed out. Am I addicted to it? I wouldn't say I'm addicted to it, but I've made this association and turned it into a habit that now I'm stressed out. I'm going to go reach for that because that's what I associate with feeling better. So I think the association more than the addiction is where the difference lies.
Yeah, and I would say this, that there's a challenge in that. And for somebody who had to go from a carbohydrate heavy diet to a very low carbohydrate diet, I've never been crazier in my life, never been more upset, never had I drooled. And, there are physical and physiological reactions to food and then unleashing. So I would say that whether it is an addiction or whether it is a habit, if you need help or know somebody that needs help, support, or counseling, regardless of addiction or habit or whatever it is, support them with that. And let's see if we can direct them to people, whether it's a registered dietitian or a mental health care professional that can help focus on that area and support them in that process. Please deliver that contact information to people because that is of incredible value.
Right. And like, I agree with you 100% there, Rick. I think there are a lot of professionals out there who would be happy to talk through someone, that kind of an issue with them. And then, just to jump on what you said about the carbohydrates, if you're cutting out a lot of things in your diet and you're, an active person, then of course and your body needs energy, then of course you're going to start thinking about those types of foods, those energy dense foods, on a more regular basis. If you've been eating a high carb diet and then all of a sudden try a very low carb diet, you are going to want those carbohydrates. So, that doesn't necessarily mean it's an addiction to those carbohydrates. It's a reflection of a physiological need there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the struggle was real, Farah. The struggle was real. And I'm not saying, and maybe it's not as difficult as it used to be, but I still struggle with it from time to time. Don't get me wrong. And, I need supportive people. If I didn't, again, to Greg's point, if I didn't have my wife there to help and cook these amazing foods and be aware and a support system for me, some people don't have that. Right. And you need to seek that out. You need to find somebody, and if that's through registered dietitian, if it's through some mental counseling, and there are people who do that through apps online now that help support you. Right. If there are cost-effective ways to do it, then find some of those cost-effective ways. But friends and family are usually super inexpensive ways that sometimes we don't want to burden people right. with our problems. Stop being so selfish, because people want to help you. People want to help you. So reach out and let people do that. All right. Greg, anything else on the question list here?
Yeah. Carla wants to know, what's the maximum protein intake an active person working out 4 to 5 days a week doing strength training can take for muscle building?
Great question, Carla. So the recommendations, and I'll give you, the International Society of Nutrition, Sports Nutrition recommendations, that's the ISSN. Their recommendations for protein intake for optimal muscle, for athletes or for active individuals, is 1.4 to 2 grams per kilogram. There are studies that have shown that a range of 1.6 grams per kilogram to 2.4 grams per kilogram, 2.2 grams per kilogram, is the optimal range for muscle protein synthesis. So if you're in that range and you are training, like as you said, 4 to 5 days per week, I would say that that's a good range to be in. It may vary a little bit day to day, but that's definitely a good target to aim for.
And it's interesting. I've mentioned this with Fabio Camana recently, who was on the show, and that's really a flashback to the old bodybuilding recommendations that said, how many grams per pound. And if you do the math, that's kind of your high end of protein intake. Mm-hmm. And one of the wonderful and interesting things I think that we should be aware of is there is an amino acid called leucine that mm-hmm. tends to be the triggering amino acid. It's a branched chain amino acid, and it triggers muscle synthesis. So within your dietary complex, having at least the leucine. So we got about 20 grams of protein, in some instances, maybe a little bit more, 25 grams of protein, but to have that at several times throughout the day, because each time you hit that, then it's going to peak again your muscle synthesis. And that might also be where we get this idea of multiple meals throughout the day, because it continues to stimulate muscle growth if your muscles have been challenged, right? So, and in particular, that leucine. So if you are taking, I wish I could remember the number on the leucine, but any of the protein complexes that you take will generally have high amounts of branched chain amino acids with that leucine involved. So just to be aware of that, and that one is a very good thing to look at, because it is a triggering of protein synthesis. Is very important for people who are looking to build muscle.
And there are a lot of food sources that have leucine in them, like your meats do, your dairy does. So definitely great sources there. But yes, leucine definitely important to look at when you're looking at some sort of a protein supplement. I will add, though, that if If you're in a caloric deficit, trying to eke out some body fat, then protein needs may be a little bit higher because, you're not necessarily meeting your caloric intake. So to avoid losing muscle mass or, catabolism where you're actually breaking down muscle mass, then in those cases, if you're in a caloric deficit, you may need to go a little bit higher than that 2.2 grams per kilogram just to offset that caloric deficit so that you're not compromising muscle mass.
I love, that's very important. Thank you for bringing that up. And especially in that caloric deficit, proteins do tend to be the more satiating of the macronutrients. So by having more protein in your diet, you tend to be less hungry. So if you're trying to build muscle and lose some body fat at the same time, which is challenging, the increase in that protein will support you in both of those aspects. So thank you for addressing that. Hey, Farah, are you okay on time for maybe another question or two? I don't know where. Yeah?
I'm fine, so.
All right, Greg, do you have any more questions that have come through?
Yeah, Anthony is interested in understanding about detox diets. What do you know about those and what can you share?
Detox. I have to say, most registered dietitians I know hate the word detox. Unless it's talking about your liver and kidneys. So detox diets, great question. I know that there are a ton of, popular programs out there that say, okay, go on this XYZ cleanse, detox yourself. At the end of the day, unless you have a compromised liver and or kidneys, your body does a phenomenal job of detoxing itself. It has to, okay? Otherwise, we would not be alive. Your body does an incredible job of detoxing itself. You really don't need to, drink a fancy juice to detox you. I think more than anything, detox diets are probably like a mental detox because you're taking a break from what you may have been eating if you were going to town on all kinds of junk foods. But physiologically, it's almost like a waste of money. I would say that you don't need to pay for a detox diet to start eating better. But stay away from any kind of detox diet. Just take a look at your diet. What are you eating? Go back to the basics. Eat good quality foods, lean proteins, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. That's enough of a detox for your body, rather than any fancy cleanse.
Yeah, I wonder if Anthony asked this question because he's like, please answer this for me so somebody else besides me can tell my clients that detox is maybe not something that they should be focusing on. And I'll say that for me, if I see detox somewhere, it's usually a red flag. Just saying, I don't know if you know what toxins we're trying to get rid of. What are the toxins? And most people can't answer that question. However, when you mentioned mental detox, then I get that because it creates a figurative language. But when people say detox, they take it very literally, do I have, it must be a lot of mercury in my food. If you've got that, then you need a detox. You need to be detoxified if you have mercury in your diet a lot. But aside from that, any toxins that come through, and there might be, don't get me wrong, there could be mercury in your diet. There could be, if the fruits and vegetables, maybe there could be some toxins on that haven't been washed off. I mean, you've got to clean your foods before you eat them. There are chances of that. But I also think that that's why in the world of nutrition, there's speak about variety, because you don't know, there could be something that might create some type of toxin, but because you don't only eat that and build that up in your system, you create such variety in your diet that you can be safe from actual real toxins that could build up. But I think for the most part, like you said, I knew it was coming when the detox question asked. I was like, "Ooh, this is good. I want to hear what you have to say." I think it's completely in line with my expectations. Let's go a couple more questions if we can with Greg, and then we will sign off in a few minutes.
Yeah, Heather wants to know, she says, my partner started eating an anti-inflammatory diet after she found out she had inflammation around a pinched nerve, which was causing problems. Is it okay for her to deviate from eating like this at any point from time to time, or should she stick to it?
Great question, Heather. I would say I would have to take a look at exactly what, your partner is eating and quote unquote, what type of deviation you're considering. If I'm understanding correctly, and again, I may be assuming a lot here, the anti-inflammatory diet is going to be something that promotes omega-3 fats, cuts out a lot of simple sugars, maybe dairy, white flour products, omega-6s. That's what, I'm assuming that your partner is eating. In terms of deviating from that, what do you, what specifically do you mean by deviating? Does it mean having the odd, again, I'll go back to ice cream? Absolutely. It's fine. I think stressing about not being able to have those things is probably going to do more damage in the long term than just saying, okay, it's fine, I can have it in one go. Deviating meaning going from, an anti-inflammatory diet to a complete 180 and eating, cheeseburgers and milkshakes every single day. That is probably not going to be a good deviation. But the odd, indulgence in something like a higher sugar item, like ice cream, like some birthday cake once in a blue moon, I don't think there's any harm in that. If anything, I think it's healthy to have that break. Just stress-wise too, mental-wise. So I think it's perfectly fine. If your partner is concerned, though, go in and talk to a professional. They will sit down and go through your diet with you and see, where it is that what it is you're specifically concerned about. But I don't think, those odd indulgences in something that's a little bit higher in dairy or sugar is going to hurt.
Hey, Farah, with that being said, are there foods that tend to be more inflammatory and foods that tend to be anti-inflammatory?
In general, excess amounts of omega-6s can, be inflammatory. And with that, I'm not saying that, if you eat too many nuts, all of a sudden you're going to be inflamed. Most of the omega-6 fatty acids that we're getting in our diet are from a lot of excess processed food intake and a lot of vegetable oils, soy oils that are in all kinds of packaged foods, bottled foods, boxed foods. Excess intake of that in general can be inflammatory, in the long run. So cutting back on that can definitely help in any kind of inflammatory condition. Bumping up your intake of phytonutrient-rich foods, so, blueberries, brightly colored strawberries, berries, any brightly colored fruit or vegetable, and your omega-3 fatty acids, bumping up those in your diet is certainly going to help with an inflammatory response. So those are, quote unquote, anti-inflammatory.
Gotcha. All right, Greg, one more question. If you have it, let's do it, and then we'll close it out.
All right. Erica wants to know, what are your thoughts on intuitive eating?
Oh, I love that question. Erica, that is, I want to say it's a whole hour or more in itself, because intuitive eating is everywhere at the moment. It's a huge topic. I think you have to clarify what intuitive eating means to the individual. Does it mean going and eating, throwing caution to the winds and eating whatever you feel like whenever you feel like? Or does it mean listening to your hunger cues and satiety signals and saying, I generally eat a good diet or quality nutrients, micronutrient-rich diet as is, but on the odd occasion when I do feel like having ice cream or cake, I'm perfectly fine eating that way because I'm eating intuitively. I know I really want it. And that's why I'm, giving into it or indulging in it. There's a huge spectrum of what intuitive eating means to different people. So I feel like I can't really, answer it completely in just a few minutes. But I think intuitive eating can work for people if you have a good understanding of what good nutrition is, what a nutrient dense diet is. Outside of that, I think, it becomes difficult to make sure that you're eating a good quality diet without compromising your nutrient intake. I'm going to move over here and plug my computer in because it's about to conk out on me.
Oh, I'd hate for that to happen in the last few seconds or so. of our time together. But I do want to say this. I think that challenging ourselves is important. And sometimes that means that you can be hungry and you just have to be okay with being hungry. It's a self-challenge. So you don't always have to feed. And this is me, it's not research or anything like that. It's like exercise to me. May not be something that I want to do, but it's something I challenge myself to do. Hunger is sometimes the same way. It's something I'm hungry, I want to eat, and it's a personal challenge for me that I say, I'm hungry, I'm going to take up this challenge, and I'm not going to eat. And I may drink water or do some activity to take my mind off of it. And one of the strategies that I simply just use with my clients is you find a food that's not your favorite food, but it's also not something that you dislike. And with that being said, I use carrots. And so if you go to the refrigerator and you keep looking for something to eat, that's not hunger, that's a craving. And so you can go in, the refrigerator's filled with food, and yet you can't find something to eat. That means that you're trying to find something to snack on that's a craving that we hopefully will have subside. So what I tell people is I use a carrot. If you're hungry enough to eat a carrot, you got to eat a carrot, all right? And if you're not hungry enough to eat a carrot, then you're not hungry enough to eat. And that's not a rule, it's not a law, but it's something to gauge our desires and our cravings. So if we're in a place like that where we're really hungry, we're craving, and I see the carrots, I don't want a carrot, I want something else, then that food is probably, you're looking for something that's a little less healthy. So if you're that hungry, you got to try to eat the carrot. And then after the carrot, maybe then if you're still feeling it, you can go and grab whatever that other snack is, but at least you can pat yourself on the back because you had a carrot. I want to say thank you so much to Farah for being here. Farah Khan, it has been amazing having you. I think you answered a lot of questions, not just for me, but for a lot of listeners, and supported what we are trying to do here within the NASM community, which is just provide support to our personal trainers. And with that being said, if you as a personal trainer are interested in nutrition, NASM, one of our biggest products that we have from the moment we launched it last year, is the Certified Nutrition Specialist, and it has been an absolute win for us, and it's only because of partnering with subject matter experts from all over, including researchers, not just on the importance of what nutrition is and learning about nutrition, but learning how to coach and work with people with nutrition. So it's not about knowing, as we mentioned before, about knowing the right answers. It is about providing a way to better to allow people to understand how to utilize this dietary support and guidance. So the NASM Certified Nutrition Specialist, I'm in the program right now. So I'm going through it. I'm studying for it. And if you're interested, I hope that you do the same. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. My name is Rick Richey. Farah, thank you for being here. This is the NASM-CPT Podcast.